Hello, and welcome. Welcome to the podcast. This is the PhD podcast, post Hump Day podcast. My name is Kellen King.
Yeah. I'm Tommy DeSalt.
Yeah, from Sandlot over there.
Exactly.
Was he your favorite? He kind of was, besides the Jet.
Yeah.
Yeah, was dope. But
He was. I don't know, dude. It's just nostalgia.
yeah,
Absolute nostalgia. It's that time of year where it's like
backyard baseball, baby.
barbecues. We talked baseball.
Yeah.
A little bit last episode, and yeah, man. I don't know, but
Trying dipping tobacco for the first time on a Ferris wheel. That just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
yeah, put some chew in. Yeah, I mean, dude, that's it's classic, and I mean, fireworks going off. I mean, it is, dude. We're glad you're here. We're glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome in. Everybody take a seat. Yeah, sit down.
Get
take
settled.
A,
Get situated.
Get you a drink. Get you what you need. If you're driving,
get your volume situated where you like it.
A virgin drink.
Yeah.
We do have a special guest coming on later for the second. After the break. You want to introduce a little bit? Just give a little tease.
Yeah. Connected. His name's Charles. He is out of California. And man, I really resonated with his message and his positivity.
Yeah.
I really connected with, his whole vibe in general really stood out. I was just on the internet and happened to see one of his videos.
Yeah.
Thought, hey, let's bring him on because I think people need to hear his story.
Absolutely.
And especially, like, I don't know, there's been a lot of turbulence lately, I feel like. And it's just good to hear, the other side of stories and the positive messages alongside of that.
Yeah,
so
he comes from like kind of a hard background. And
yeah.
He's definitely turned his life around. He's coming out with a podcast that's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, the Mental Wealth podcast.
Obviously, it's about mental health. Very important to me. I want to get into that with him later. I'm very excited to talk about that.
Yeah. He's got his own brand.
Yeah,
which he'll fill us in on.
He said he might give us a couple. Hopefully, I'm going to put it on the podcast. That's what he does now.
Yeah, definitely. We'll support that and rock that swag. Speaking of swag, Colin, your shirt is taking me back.
Yeah,
it's Yu-Gi-Oh.
It's Yu-Gi-Oh. First of all, I just want to say, Yu-Gi-Oh. I get it. It's like the stepchild of like Pokemon cards, Magic, whatever. I didn't get into it when I was younger. I got into it
late bloomer.
Yeah, absolutely. In college,
no shit.
And it was a secret. Like I didn't tell anybody. One of my friends, like he was really into it when we were younger. And I remember the kids at the lunch table, like they would always.
I was hiding cocaine, keeping it a secret. You were hiding Yu-Gi-Oh.
Exactly, like because I would play online with him, and I would like lock. And we would call it lock the door. I think maybe we talked about it.
We did talk about it.
Yeah, and I'd be like, hey, he's like, hey, do you want to lock the door? And
so
like,
that's what you were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, so. Yeah, I never really liked Yu-Gi-Oh! Growing up. Like, there was always those kids at the lunch table that they would bring their Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards out and play, and I always thought it was like a knockoff of Pokemon, right? And Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out like a couple years after Pokemon had already hit the stage. So, anyway, when I'd see that, I was like, that's not for me. But then I was like, okay, I'll play it with you. And dude, it is so much fun. It's just like a card game. I love board games. I love card games. Like I like doing that, and I like competition. It's just you versus mono, and it's just fun. Like you can make your own decks. Like you got it's just a lot of fun. So I was
really customize your experience.
Exactly.
It sounds like
and you can have different like little monsters or whatever that you just revolve around. Like on the back of the shirt, it's got like a blue eyes white dragon.
Yeah, I saw it was a dragon.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's so scary. No, but so. I was playing it on the line the other day, and Alex came in. He's like, "What are you playing? This looks boring." I was like, "Well, I guess it kind of is boring, But I was trying to teach him how to play it, and he was just like, "Okay, yeah, it is boring."
Yeah, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, but it like sparked something in him where he wanted to like get back into Pokemon. Which, yes, that's like the gold standard for.
Which sounds funny because get back into Pokemon.
Right.
When we were that age.
we were just now getting into it because that's when it got on this. Like, he's the same age that I was when it was like red hot, you
Yep.
know, and it's red hot again. Like the cards that I have, I still have them. They're somewhere in at my parents' house, which that's going to be a down payment.
I
for
need
a
to
house.
dig my old cards out.
I bet you're talking baseball cards, right?
Well, I got some Pokemon cards,
Yeah.
but more baseball cards. But I mean, I don't want to go all Gary V here, but
Do it.
I feel like some of those cards might be worth something.
Dude, they
Just
are.
because, dude, there were so many. I mean, that was like our weekend thing during the summer
Yeah.
too.
And they would
was-
ban them at school too.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it was a currency.
Yeah.
It was our currency as kids.
Yeah.
It was baseball cards and Pokemon cards.
Yep.
And dude, I used to love it. You get the Topps cards and all the different packages, and dude, some you get the bubble gum
Yeah.
that comes with it.
It
Pokemon
has a cool smell to it too.
yeah. The baseball cards, that was the difference between Pokemon cards and baseball cards for me, was like the Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
I don't know that they had the same smell.
Okay, so I would remember going to a Barnes and Noble, and Barnes and Noble automatically already has like that new book smell.
Yeah.
So like that also resonates with me.
It's soaked into it.
Yeah, it's like you go in, you got that like new book smell, and then it's like you open the package, just there's the rush that you get. Probably the same as cocaine, I'm guessing. But
Yeah, not quite. A little bit though. Yeah, no. The pre-opening of the package.
Yeah.
No, it's a rush because you
and then just
you
pulling
don't know
out.
how good it is inside till you open it up,
Yeah.
and then you take a whiff. I guess you could relate it to that.
I'm just messing with you. I
Probably
know.
not though. The thing about baseball cards I remember was the distinct smell, the bubble gum.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that separated it from Pokemon for me was like I had a general understanding of Pokemon just because it was so big
Yeah, you
when we
had
were
to-
younger.
Yeah.
The difference with some of these baseball cards is, I didn't know half of these players. So there was a whole nother layer to it for me.
Yeah.
Of dude, it wasn't like I could pull out a cell phone and Google, who
this guy was.
This guy is. It's
Yeah.
like you got to start asking around. Hey, Dad, have you heard of this
Oh,
guy?
yeah, I know him. Yeah, or whatever.
And with
yeah.
Pokemon, it was like for the most part, like I knew if I got a Charizard, like
Yeah.
a certain edition, like
Yeah.
that was big time.
But here's the thing, and I that's a great analogy, like great comparison. But if you're on, I know you're a sales guy. There's that negotiation and trades when you're trading, the currency, trading the Pokemon cards.
Love it.
If your buyer or seller doesn't know who they've got or what they've got, and you do,
Oh, you
Man.
can. I mean, yeah,
you just like, running the table with them. So
you can rake them.
yeah,
And the cool thing about that was the negotiation factor.
oh yeah,
Was so fun because
it was.
it was like our version of going to Vegas. Like, the house is dealing cards.
Yeah.
We don't have control of it. I used to love opening them, like going to the store with a couple of friends
Yeah,
and then getting home,
and just trading or looking at them,
opening them.
Yeah,
And then, dude, I would always try to be as discreet as possible about what I actually had gotten.
yeah. You got to downsell what you got or if you get too
Yeah.
excited about it and then it's time to get those trades, it's like, wait, what was all that excitement about that Chansey or
You're showing your
Nomar
hand.
Garcia Parra over there?
You're showing your hand, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was fun. And the Pokemon element was like this whole new experience because it was just this imaginary world.
Yeah.
And then you had it was playing on TV.
Yeah, and that guy was like 10 years old or whatever, and kind of the same age as we were, and he's like out doing these old adventures. He's got his own bicycle, and he's
Yeah.
like, that was just the whole thing was just badass to me. But
It was.
what I'm gonna say is that like the kids now they're back into Pokemon. There was like a generation or so where it kind of like was out in the they were doing a lot, and then it came back. This I mean Gen Z's definitely
I think
they're into it, but like
the
Gen
Pokemon
Alpha,
the Pokemon app
yeah,
started to trickle it back in.
Pokemon Go, that one,
Yep.
Remember we talked about this. That's when the world was like as one. We all were going downtown trying to, find that Mewtwo or whatever Pokemon it was that day. Like that's when it didn't matter what, side of the aisle you were on.
It didn't matter what side of the street you were on.
Right.
People were parking where they shouldn't park. And it's
Exactly.
like, it's okay. I bet he's got something in his sights.
Yeah, he's like, the only thing that mattered was like what team you picked. With the red, like there's the Mystic, Valor, whatever the third one was. Write me, let me know. It was the yellow one. They were bad anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the thing is like everybody was in on this craze, And
it really did take over. What do you think it was? Because after Pokemon Go came out, I feel like it then took another dip, and then recently, I mean, I saw it on LinkedIn.
It was the pandemic hit it back up.
Okay.
So pandemic happened again, happened, and then everyone's kind of sitting at home, and a lot of people were just getting into hobbies that they had not either had time to do or they were trying new hobbies. For example, this is lame, but I tried to make my own kombucha when when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, no, people were making their own pasta, kombucha,
bread. I think Amber a couple episodes ago said that she started to learn how to make bread.
She became a goddess and made bread.
Exactly. So people were doing that, and a lot of people got into like card trading, or like trying to make money on the side. They're like, oh, I could sell these old cards that I have.
Literally,
or look at it, and
Gary V.
Exactly. And so I think that's what happened. I think that kind of like revitalized it. And then now it's just it's not back to where it was. I mean, it was everywhere. Pikachu, you couldn't turn a corner without seeing like Pikachu or, Ditto or whoever just like on a cereal box.
Can you do a good Pikachu impression?
No, I can try. Let me see. Pika. That's pretty good. Can you?
Pikachu.
No, that was so bad.
I don't know. B, what do you got? Come on, everybody. Everybody one time. Let's hear your Pikachu.
I did never watch Pokemon.
Come on.
She was talking about this Webkins bullshit.
What?
Tell us about it a little bit.
What is this?
Because this skipped us.
Yeah, this was like right after y'all.
Yeah.
Probably.
God, that was horrible. It's stuck in my brain now. I got like...
What, Pikachu?
Dude, yeah, I can't do it.
Well, it's okay. I'm bad at impersonation. I'm bad at impressions. Like, I always have the same voice that comes out anyway.
Webkins.
Webkins. Let's get to it.
You would buy stuffed animals, and they'd have a tag on their ear or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was in like this little, like what you put like name tags in?
Yes.
Like the little plastic thing.
Yeah.
And then once you buy them, you could cut the tag open, and there would be a code on the inside. And you would go to Webkins, and you put the code in, and you'd have a new pet.
That's cool.
And you could just like.
I've heard of it.
It's a virtual pet.
Yeah,
you could build them a house. You had to feed them. You could give them a bath, put clothes on them.
It's like a damn Furby online.
Yeah, Furby,
and then
Tamagotchi.
Play games to get money. It was fun.
Yeah,
I kind of remember something
you had
like
an online zoo.
Yeah, I kind of remember something like that when we were kids, and I thought it was called Webkins, but it's something similar where you could find animals that you could you got enough credits online that you could get more. And it was like the precursor to Webkins.
Interesting.
And I remember I've got cousins that are a little bit younger than me, and they were into it. And like I had seen what it was, but I think that was the precursor. Webkins, that's a great idea though, because then you've got, the ad revenue online. You're double dipping at that point.
Yeah, you can really monetize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never heard of that. But I get why it was popular.
Yeah. They do have they do kind of have something similar with that with other like games and stuff. Like it's not just on the game now; it's online, and you can they do that with other things and card games too.
What was that? They had Roller Coaster Tycoon, but they had a zoo one.
Yeah, Zoo Tycoon.
Pretty sure yeah. Well, I wonder if it was kind of similar.
No,
to that.
It wasn't.
Okay.
It was more like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Did you ever play Roller Coaster Tycoon?
Absolutely,
dude. I loved that game.
Did you ever?
One of my favorite things was leaving the roller coaster so that it just
flies
had a
off.
dead end.
And then it just, or you'd get like
there's actually a ride at Six Flags that does that, but then it goes backwards.
Oh, is it the Shockwave or the Flashback? And it's not called that anymore. I think it's called the Flash.
It's something else. But yeah, it literally just stops and then it goes backwards. And every time that I would get on that, I'd have flashbacks to that game. I was like, karma, don't do me now.
I think
Like,
Mr. Freeze does that too.
yeah.
And then, well, I want to talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon for a little bit, but Mr. Freeze, Six Flags does this thing where and they used to do it. I don't know if they still do it, but like every year they would do something different with one of the rides. Like Mr. Freeze,
Okay.
they would turn the like coaster or whatever what do you want to call it, the carts.
Yep.
They would turn them around. So like instead of facing forward and going forward through the thing, you would be sitting backwards and going backwards.
Yeah.
And then like there's this one roller coaster called Runaway Mine Train or something like that, where inside it's all dark, pitch black.
Yep.
They would turn the light on, and so like, and the reason why they keep it off is because the coaster is so close. Like sometimes, like I can see the.
You got to keep your hands inside.
Yeah, you do. And so for a while they would do something different with each ride. I don't know if they still do, but here's what I would do at Roller Coaster Tycoon. First of all, I liked like just this is so nerdy, but I liked like finding the different little people around, hearing what their little stories were about. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I had enough money to go on this ride. It's like, okay, well, shit, I guess I'm gonna have to turn down the price so you can
Give
get
you
on.
a discount today.
Yeah, just for the next 30 minutes.
Just for today.
Yeah, and then just like grab his little, you use that little like tweezer looking thing, like icon to pick him up.
Offer valid till 12:30 today.
But then you would get bored and you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna just go throw this guy in the water over here, and he'd drown, and then
You ungrateful fuck.
yeah, you'd go right past like the coaster that he said, I wish it was cheaper, and then he'd walk away and you'd be like, what the fuck? So you'd go pick him up and put him back, and he's like, just walks right past, like gets the cotton candy, and you're like, okay, dude, come on, one more time. And drop him right there, and he just walk back go to the bathroom. You're like, okay, I'm gonna start putting prices on the bathroom, you fucker. And then finally, it's just like I'm done with this guy, and you throw him in the water, and he'd like drown. Then that gets in your sadistic side where you're just like, I'm gonna start messing with these roller coasters, like what you said with like putting the ramp like where it's not completely finished, or the ones that everyone sits in that like big circle and it goes straight vertically, and you can just hit the velocity on that bad boy,
send them,
and they just fly out to the stratosphere.
I remember the first time we did that. I was with my brother and another kid from the neighborhood, and we were like, "What happened?" Like we really didn't know. We were like, "What's gonna happen if we do this?" And then it just was like, I'd come home from school and I had a bad day, and it's like,
we had to take it out on these fuckers. Yeah, dude, I love that game. There's another game that you didn't get to play that one in computer class, but this one you did. Oregon Trail.
Wow, that was
I did that.
That was one of my favorite games.
We're looking
as
at
a kid.
we're looking at new
game.
we're looking at new like another laptop. For us, but not really. We're looking at for like a work laptop.
Yeah, for the podcast. Yeah.
But this one's for like me and Lulu. She's looking at some monitors and stuff like that, like all that kind of stuff. Anyway, they had Oregon Trail, like a new version of it, we were just at Best Buy, buying some cords or whatever for her monitors, and saw Oregon Trail, and it's like a new version of it, like, and I was like, oh my god,
with the graphics like new age.
They were like that eight, what is it, like the Pixel 8 or 8 peg or whatever they call it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They had that same graphic, but it was definitely better. Like it was a style choice instead of like, hey, this is the only option we've got.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's cool. Because that was part of the experience.
But I remember like sitting in computer class when you could pick playing a couple games like free, Computer Friday or whatever. And, you'd pick Oregon Trail and maybe some of the homies would pick it too. And you could name your like pioneers after your classmates.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, oh, hey, Samantha, you just got syphilis. And you didn't even know what that was.
Jessica, you got typhoid fever.
Exactly.
You're gone.
Oh, you just got bit by a snake. Well, this new one now, like you have choice. You always had choices. Like
Andrew, you drowned. You didn't make it through.
You didn't. Yeah, and you had the mini game where you could like maneuver the whatever, like the wagon
that
through
was awesome.
But now they've got like new choices because I was playing with Alex for a little bit while Lulu was doing her thing.
They
like,
got COVID on there now.
Basically, they have one of my pioneers or like people that I was traveling with got bit by a rattlesnake, and I could pick which one of the people either didn't do anything with it. They could give them medicine, or they could suck the poison out. And there's no stakes here. This isn't my game. This is just at Best Buy. So I had old had Sitting Bull. He was like the navigator. Suck out the poison.
What's the sound effect on that?
I don't know if he even had any, but yeah,
God, everyone's gonna hate us.
yeah. But he got sick. He ended
Yeah.
up getting sick. So I mean, there's a price to be paid for the choices you make in life, and Oregon Trail's a good way to figure that out. Like,
Yeah, no, that's good. You learn a lot of life lessons. There's consequences for your actions, and sometimes there's a fork in the road, and you can't be indecisive.
exactly. I remember the hunting on that game.
Yeah,
I would just like load up on meat and like all the, I'd shoot like all the bison or like whatever's out there, the squirrels and the deer.
absolute carnage.
Because it's a different game. Like, you're traveling, but then when you get to that mini game where you get to hunt, it's like you're just shooting things.
It's a free for all.
But then you got to realize, okay, the weight capacity of this wagon's not going to carry all this meat, but we're going to make it. We're going to try to make it work.
We're gonna do our best out here.
Then you get through, you get to like the Rio Grande, or not Rio Grande, but you get to like the Mississippi River, or wherever you're going to be at.
Yep.
And what happens when you get into the water? It sinks, or you lose like half your stuff.
Yeah, you
because
get greedy. You sink.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a very important game for kids to play. Both of them are.
Dude, I remember we used to get to play that on Fridays at school.
Yeah.
That was kind of the time. Or if you finished your assignment,
Yep.
certain days, you could hop on a computer.
Those are three games that I think every kid should be able to, or every kid need to have played. Some type of trading card. I think Pokemon, because I mean it teaches
learn how
you
to negotiate.
It teaches you the values of negotiating and trading and fair value and supply and demand, where the market's at the time. So there we go. We get that all taken care of. Then we go to Oregon Trail. The decisions that you make have consequences. You have to be not impulsive. You have to start thinking, preactive of your decisions. Boom. Then Roller Coaster Tycoon. Sometimes you just want off a little bit of steam, and you want to play God for a little bit. I just think
it's a lot of life life there. I tell you what, it's kind of in line with consequences in life and making decisions.
Yeah.
Our guest that we have coming on today, that's one of the things we're going to talk about. Because he had a fork in the road.
Yeah.
And he had some decisions to make. So I'm real excited to hear that and kind of his storyline, because everyone has decisions in life, and it's something about those games, and as fun as they were, they did teach you stuff.
Absolutely.
But like, I didn't have the wherewithal to apply that all the time.
Right.
And so that was kind of a thing looking back on. Now I'm like, oh man, like there's a lot more to that stuff and why they let us play that in school.
I think also though, like, honestly, you get to play it in school and all that kind of stuff, and maybe on the surface you don't think it really changed how you reacted to different stuff, but I mean, I think you learn some life lessons that subconsciously you are putting it, like,
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But I want to take a break because I want to. Let's give him a call.
Let's get him on the line.
Yeah.
Let's get Charles
So
on.
stick with us. We're gonna get Charles on here.
Yeah, we'll be right back. All right. We're back, and we've got a special guest.
Very special.
On the line. Charles, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Thank y'all for having me on.
Absolutely. Tell me, you want to introduce him a little bit? I got a video I want to play because I think it really instills who Charles is as a human being.
Yeah.
But go for it.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was actually not too long ago, I think it was even in the morning time, I was drinking coffee and kind of scrolling around as we do, and had seen a video. Somehow I ended up on, I think he was live, and immediately there was just this positivity just radiating. And I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And from there, I was like, I got to talk to this guy. And like, sometimes in life you come across, different people and you're just intrigued. And I think that's what it was for me. I was like, there's got to be a story here, because most people that are putting themselves out there in that light, there's something to it.
Mhm.
And I wasn't wrong. Immediately, Charles and I started kind of conversing online. We ended up hopping on the phone, and I mean, I didn't know what to expect. If we were gonna have a long conversation or a short conversation. I know we were interested in trying to join up, but I mean, we stayed on the phone for what, an hour,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
really really cool.
Well, let me play this video. So this is you. You're graduating from. Kind of set the stage. What are you graduating from here? It says class of 2023, and you're
yeah.
speaking at it. So what's going on here?
Yeah, actually, the video is actually from it's called the Rites of Passage event.
Okay.
It's pretty much for like all the Black graduates at Monterey Peninsula College. So
Awesome. All right. And so you're
yeah.
making a little speech at the end, man, and I really like it. So let's just get right into it.
All right.
Countless sleepless nights and unwavering determination I have toiled to ensure that delayed gratification becomes the cornerstone of my achievements. I have overcome the shackles of gang and drug culture, navigated the dark hours of homelessness at the tender age of 16, fought against the clutches of depression and addiction. Today I stand tall, a testament to an unyielding spirit within me. My path to this point has been hard, and the challenges I have faced are not to be taken lightly. However, I am grateful that my struggles do not define me. What you see before you is a symbol of resilience, power, and unwavering dedication. Through countless...
That's great, man. So I want to touch on that real quick. It said that you got out of the gang life. You were homeless at the age of 16. Tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Just, not have anything to really fall back on. You kind of turned to the gang life, gang culture, being out on your own at 16.
Yeah, man. Well, early on, man, I come from very humble beginnings, very, very humble beginnings. So, I was actually born into a family who was already affiliated into like the gang culture, gang and drug culture.
Okay.
So, with that, it kind of, it's almost expected, of you to follow suit in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Because, a lot of the men in my family are, either affiliated or some, associated some way
Right.
with either gang or drug culture. So, me being young, I seen a lot growing up, a lot of craziness, man. A lot of, I've seen the good and the bad, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, seeing that for myself, you know what I mean, and seeing the consequences behind some of those actions and some of those decisions, that my family members made, I didn't necessarily know any better, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what was modeled for me at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, my brother being, the one closest to me who was actually affiliated, and of course, being younger and you're looking up to your older brother, you aspire to be similar or somewhat like, him.
Absolutely. Me and Tommy as well. We're both the younger brothers. I've got two. He's got one. You always, not necessarily in their shadow, but you want to follow their footsteps.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of appealed, because, from the outside looking in, you see the flash and the glamour behind the gang and drug culture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you don't necessarily know the process, that's the in between, right?
Yeah.
So we see the result.
Yeah.
We see the money, we see the cars, we see, the ladies, we see all of that, and it
Right.
feels the jewelry, you know what I mean? It looks good.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, there's also the struggle, having to look over your back 24/7, having to worry about not going into certain areas because you're considered out of bounds, right?
Yep.
And what out of bounds means just means like, you're just in a place that, your gang is not really
Yeah.
welcome. You know what I'm saying? And if people know who you are, they're definitely going to press you on that issue.
Yep.
So, there's a lot of that coincides with that. And then of course, you're dealing with the law as well. So, I mean, it's just a consistent, like ducking and dodging, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like you're outside and you're presenting this lifestyle, as like a glorified, life. So because at the end of the day, like for them being who they are, they want to also be able to recruit people into what they're doing.
Yep. I think a lot. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think a lot of times, like in those situations, you're not really living; you're just surviving. And but you want to give the notion that you're out there thriving, right? And a lot of times that
Yep.
resonates with a lot of people, I think, because you see a lot of people on Instagram, a lot of social medias, and they're showing their best life, right? They're not showing
Hmm.
everything that's behind the camera, and I'm not trying. I'm comparing it, yes, but I'm just
Hmm.
comparing it to show that people can resonate with that, and I know that people resonate
Right.
with your story, and
Hmm.
so I mean, so tell me, you said you were homeless at 16. Tell me kind of how that happened. What what made you where you are now from 16 to then?
Okay, so just going back a little bit, when I was younger, again, I'm growing up, being, seeing this gang culture, drug culture. I grew up with a single mom, so my father was in my life up until I was about 1 years old.
Mm,
Him and my mother were never married. They were kind of just having fun,
yeah,
doing their thing, and then I came along. So then he ended up leaving because they could figure it out,
right.
whatever the case was at that time. So with me kind of growing up in that lifestyle, I was a knucklehead, man. I was starting to do some, following the steps of some of the people, my uncles, my brother. I was starting to do things that I shouldn't have been doing at the age that I was doing it. So my mother caught on, and luckily for me, I had a mother who understood the lifestyle but didn't necessarily want that for me,
Hmm.
right? So once she started seeing that I was following in those same footsteps, she was like, she took a step back and was like, wait a minute, like this isn't something that I want for you, you know what I mean? Because I was also a very smart kid, you know what I mean? I was in school, I was making A's and B's, very intelligent, always a free thinker. I always thought for myself, and she didn't want me to lose any of that to the streets. So what she ended up doing was she sent me to go live with my father, who was in North Carolina at the time, and that's where he grew up, and that's where his family unit is. So again, he was out of my life, um, since I was 1 years old, and then when she decided to send me out there, I was pretty much already, a teenager. I was about 15, 16.
Mm,
Um, so I mean, you know, trying to force myself to be in a situation where I'm trying to get to know someone that I never really knew, right? So he's like a stranger to me.
right.
So it kind of like I had to grow up fast, right? So I had that mentality early on. You know what I mean? I was always well above my age in my mentality. So trying to build a dynamic between me and my father was hard because we clashed a lot. Because I felt like I was already grown. Because where I come from, I would be considered a man in the
You
street,
had to be, yeah.
right? So and I don't think he really necessarily understood that because he didn't grow up in that same type of culture. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
grew up in the country. You know what I mean? So like for him, it was completely new. You know what I mean? So he didn't really understand it. He didn't really get it. So once
Yeah.
he, saw me and we started to develop a relationship, that's when it kind of like we clashed, we butted heads a lot, and
Absolutely.
we just didn't agree.
Yeah.
So I ended up, he had like he had a family situation going on. He got remarried. They had he had a stepson, and his stepson was doing his in college. He was playing college ball for North Carolina State, and he was doing well for himself. But a lot of the attention from my father was actually going to the stepson.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, well, damn, like, like
Yeah. It's
you've been
like,
out of my life for so long.
yeah. It's like he's trying to like start over in a sense, not with you, but with some other kid.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
So of course, as a kid, that hurts. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was just curious, just because I know we talked on the phone the other night, and I kind
Mhm.
of gave you some insight where I came from, and it wasn't until like I was 16 that I found myself in situations with people, places, and things that I really shouldn't have been involved with, and it progressed more and more. But that price of admission you touched on earlier, um,
Mhm.
most people do not have any idea what that's like. Um,
Mhm.
it's one thing if you're, let's say a security guard or police officer and you're always
Mhm.
strapped. It's another thing when you got stolen guns on you. It's another
Right.
thing when you're in a neighborhood you shouldn't be in, and if you're
Mhm.
spotted, you're a fish out of water. The
Mhm.
day-to-day grind of that lifestyle and what it does to your mental state, to your emotions. I mean, I really get what you're saying about, you were already providing for yourself before basically you were 16 years old.
Right.
And when you went to North Carolina, um, you're coming in with somebody that's your dad that you don't have much of a relationship with. But then on top of
Mhm.
that, you know, I know you were taken out of that environment that you were in, but that stuff doesn't leave you either. Um,
Right.
and so, did you notice that when you were there? I don't know if found those same people in North Carolina and started
Mhm.
getting into the same stuff. Did you notice, like, mentally, like it was already catching up with you?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because when I first got to North Carolina, in my mentality, I was out of bounds, right? Because I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
anybody in anywhere, right? So the people that I came across, I'm always, skeptical. You know what I
Sure.
mean? I'm like, what's the end goal here? Like, you know what I mean? What are they trying to, what are they saying? Because, it's a different vernacular as well. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I'm coming from the West Coast and I'm talking, my West Coast slang. Like I'm talking, saying things that they don't understand.
Yeah.
And then of course the way that they're speaking, there's certain things that they're saying that I'm not understanding. So
Right.
of
You're
course,
you're an outsider for sure.
yeah. So, coming from me, I'm like, I gotta, be on my P's and Q's, you know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, well, who can I really associate myself with and who can I not? Because again, out there in North Carolina where I was living, there was a different type, but it was a lot of gang culture out there too, but the gang culture was a lot different.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
It was nowhere near the same.
I I I will attest to that. Is having lived in California,
Mhm.
um, people that haven't been there or around that life don't really understand. Also, is the gang life you see in suburbs, or throughout the country, even when you trace the
Mhm.
origins back to
Mhm.
California. um,
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day explaining the different cultures, and kind of different structures of
Mhm.
different gangs and organizations, how different it is across the country. But when you step into California and certain parts of it, it is like the wildest I'd ever experienced. And I wasn't affiliated, associated at all, but I was in the drug activity side of it.
Mhm.
And like it was a whole different level. So I definitely get what you're saying about, you know, coming from that, going somewhere else where, it could have been the same organization and it's a whole different playbook. Um,
Right.
Let me ask you this. So your background and everything, and you're in North Carolina. Um, was there a breaking point for you that you said, I need to, I wouldn't say grow up, but I need to wake up. I need to, turn my life around. This isn't working for me. What was that like? What did that, walk me through that day or that week or that year?
Oh man. At that point, I had already, stepped outside of my father's house. It was February my senior year, um, and I left. You know what I mean? I decided to leave, go out on my own. Spent a few years out there in North Carolina, and then the thing that really woke me up was when I realized that I had fallen into the drug culture but not so much on the side that I knew, but as a user.
Mm.
Mm.
So to cope and to deal with a lot of the pain that I was feeling from abandonment to, just being somewhere that you're not familiar with, not having a lot of family members to fall back on. I really had to rely on myself and then, the few people that I was close to. However, the few people that I was close to, they were introducing me to different things as far as like drugs and,
Yeah.
alcohol and, we were smoking hella weed and, we were all hurting, but we were all coping in our own way.
Sure.
So what really woke me up was when I was on a pretty crazy binge on Xanaxes.
Okay.
And I don't know if people know anything about Xanaxes, man. If you're talking about being numb,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's the closest thing to numbing, any all of my feelings at once. So I would consistently, be doing that on the regular. So, but when I woke up, I realized I'm like, wait a minute, like there's parts of my life that I don't remember because I was so heavily, relying on Xanax.
Right.
And I woke up one morning and I literally had, I didn't know where I was. I was in someone's house I didn't even know. And then on top of that, it was just like, it was kind of a dangerous situation because the person's house that I was in was affiliated with a gang that where I'm from, we have no ties. Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's a bad situation if we come across each other. So being in that situation, I realized how much danger I was really in chasing, the feeling of this, this drug to cope with what I was dealing with. So that's what woke me up. And I was like, man, I could have, anything could have happened to me. I could have died. I could have,
Right.
this man could have killed me. Could have, anything could have happened.
Yeah. And you were kind of, obviously sedated. So you put yourself in that situation without, really putting yourself in that situation, if that makes sense. Like, you're on the ball,
Right.
you're on Xanax. So like, I've heard that. I've been prescribed Xanax. I deal with mental health stuff too. I'm very. I try to stay away from it. I know that road that it goes down. So I'm glad that you touched on that. I want to ask you that question. It sparked my idea or my mind that Xanax is to help people with depression and mental health issues. If I know that's you're a big advocate for that. Big advocate for people that
Absolutely.
health health wellness. What's your relationship like that with self medication compared to being medicated, or like how do you medicate yourself if you don't mind? Does that? I'm just trying to get to the point where like you are a user, and then you've got maybe a doctor or a psychiatrist saying, "Hey, here's what we want to prescribe you," and the side effects that gives you. That road, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So basically, for me, I never really had anybody to, really, give me that breakdown, right?
Gotcha.
But but that situation that I spoke about earlier scared me so much that it kind of pushed me away from it.
Yeah.
Cold turkey. And one thing about me is I don't necessarily have an addictive personality.
Okay.
So, but when I was going through that, again, I realized the reason why I was doing this was because I was coping. I was dealing with something. I was going through something, but I wasn't necessarily dealing with those emotions behind what I was going through.
Right.
So I actually ended up, gathering all my things, and I was like, look, I'm going back home. You know what I mean? Something just told me to get back home, do what you need to do, figure it out, get there, and you'll figure out the rest. So that's exactly what I did. I got on a plane, came all the way back to California, and that's when I started to, get into different things. I started to, read a bunch of different self-help books, self-development books. I started getting into business because it always intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing those things and kind of, focusing my mind and putting my mind towards that instead of trying to chase drugs per se.
Yeah, no, that makes
So,
perfect sense. It's like, especially if you don't have an addictive personality, like you were really,
mhm,
really outside of who you are at the end of the day,
oh,
and kind of got sloppy, and found
okay,
yourself in a large predicament. Let me ask you this: is when you went back home, because I know for me that um, going back home out of environments that I had been active in, with stuff I shouldn't have been. Um,
hmm
that temptation, it's not hard to make $400 or $500 doing doing stuff that's not necessarily legal versus
right,
working retail making $10 an hour. Um,
hmm
I'm just setting that stage of like it's real easy to give in. Did you,
hmm
as much as you were reading self help books and learning about business stuff, did you ever find yourself like, man, I can do this one more time, or I can, any temptation there, or was it just like never looking back?
yeah. I mean, I was very tempted, very tempted. Again, I'm back in my familiar area, with people that I know, so who have certain access to certain things,
Right.
Right.
and um, so of course, it definitely crossed my mind, but at the same time, just I think that break away from them, it kind of opened my eyes to really see the bigger picture, and I was able to see a lot of the stuff that they were, a lot of the consequences behind some of the actions that they were dealing with, what I'm saying, because of the things that they were doing illegally, right?
Yeah.
So seeing that for myself, that really deterred me away because I mean I've seen people go away for a long time. You know what I mean? Be behind certain drugs or behind certain decisions that they made. In survival mode. And for me, seeing that, especially even with my brother, because when I came back home, my brother was around, but he wasn't around because he was pretty much on the run.
Hmm.
Like I mean, he was everywhere he went, he pretty much was just looking over his shoulder. So he was
Right.
just, consistently moving. And I knew for myself, I was like, you know what, this is not what I want for me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I know I'm a very intelligent dude. Like what I mean? If anything, I know I can create something and build something for myself
Yeah.
that can generate me the same income or more
Yeah.
if I really put, bet on myself and put the effort behind me. So that's what really gave me the catalyst to, start going in the opposite direction.
It's nice. Hey, real quick, I got one more question for you. We're going to take a break. We want to get you back on right after this break. But if you, let's say you're in, you had you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing about what were your struggles
Mhm.
and some piece of advice or somebody who's going through, the exact same situation that you were going through. Didn't your family life wasn't complete. You were missing, that father figure that you needed or needed someone to pour into you. What would be something that you would tell your younger self?
Man, that's a good question. I've never been asked that question before. But
Sorry to put you on the spot.
no worries, no worries. One thing I would definitely tell myself is that I am not my circumstance.
Mm,
Because for the longest time, I felt like what was happening to me was because it was my fault. Um, however, I was, I needed to understand that just because I was in that circumstance, it didn't define me as who I am. I was much bigger than that situation and that circumstance.
yeah,
So,
That's
for
powerful.
anybody going through it, anybody
absolutely.
going through it, man, like just understand, like you are not your circumstance. It does
Yeah.
not define you at all.
And
So,
real quick before we take a break, I just want to tell you one thing that I would challenge you to do. Is
mhm,
your channel and you get your podcast coming out here in about a month. Like, would
mhm,
challenge you to remember that because there's an audience of kids that look just like you that are scrolling on TikTok
absolutely,
that you have a message to tell them, and they're about that age. So I just want to challenge you to just kind of remember that why. And I know you will, but
absolutely.
But just anyway,
Absolutely.
let's take a break real quick. When we come back, we're gonna continue the conversation. I'm really enjoying getting to know you, Charles. I appreciate you taking our call.
Yeah. We're going to take a
Yeah, of course. Man.
quick break, a few more questions, and hop back in. All right, and we're back with Charles, talking about really the transformation of his life. Powerful, powerful story.
Yeah, man.
Quite a message. Charles, I just want to touch on real quick is, that freedom that you get to experience today,
Mhm.
it is unlike any other that I've ever experienced. I don't worry about getting pulled over and getting popped riding 30 or
Mhm.
failing a Spritey test or uh, one of the things that was told to me when I kind of made some major life changes was you're going to be able to go out and look the world in the eye.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you found that sooner than I did in life to where, as tempting as things were, you were on a
Mhm.
mission and you still are. And I know you've got a lot of stuff in the works and some projects and you've got your brand. So just if you can talk to us a little bit about what that freedom's like today and kind of what your life looks like now.
Man, it is a complete 180. I feel like because you know before there were certain areas that I wouldn't go to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't experience certain things in those areas because I was always had that that anxiety of, oh man, is somebody gonna see me? Is somebody gonna notice me, or somebody gonna associate me with this person because they've seen us together? Like
Yeah.
now I don't have that issue per se, um, because I've been able to represent myself in a different light, to a lot of people, especially within my own community. Um, because now a part of my 9 to 5, I actually am a mailman. So I actually deliver mail in the same neighborhood that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I mean, now for even some of the younger kids who see me, or people, not even younger kids, like a lot of adults, they come up to me and tell me all the time because there's not a lot of black mailmen in our area. So when they see one, it's like they always just reference this, "Hey, we appreciate what you're doing," you know what I'm saying? Because I'm inspiring people based off of what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
when I experienced that in my 9 to 5, I was like, man, that's powerful. Like,
Yeah.
That is great. Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah.
I was just
No,
gonna.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, they're kind of pouring back into you a little bit as well. Like, yeah, you're pouring into that neighborhood, but getting that from
Mhm.
them is above and beyond. There's a saying that I've heard recently that I had never thought about, and I'm
Mhm.
curious to hear if you've heard of it too. It says that for a black man, the one time that they receive flowers in their life is usually at their funeral. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah, and that just like stopped me in my tracks when I heard that. Uh,
Yeah.
Men in general, but for sure, I know that could be the case. You got to sometimes have to put up on a front and be a little bit more, So I just want to hear a little bit about that, like having a community that can, basically give you flowers. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, congratulate you, appreciate you, and pour back into
Mhm.
you as you do to them. So that's good to hear that, first of all. But I want to hear a little bit more, like, how are you doing that? You're obviously getting a mail, but you're pouring into that community as well.
Well, yeah, and you're getting to interact in your community every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's major because again, like, I mean, from kids to adults. Again, I mean, I've even had some gang members who come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, like I've never seen a black mailman, but I just want to let you know you inspire me. What you're doing, keep doing what you're doing."
There you go.
You know what I mean? And I pour back into them as well. And I'm like, "Hey, look, man, like, you know what I'm saying? Like this, you know, you can be greater than your situation. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to
Absolutely.
be where you are. You know what I mean? So I'm able to, as much as they pour into me, I'm able to do the same for them. But with that being said, like that also pushed me in the direction of building my brand
Yeah.
and building something that I can continue to inspire and empower people with.
Yeah. Let's talk about your brand a little bit. The messaging about it. Tell us a little bit more about that. So I'm a little bit new about it. Tommy's known about it a little bit more, but tell our listeners, tell me also a little bit more about your brand and your messaging that you want to get across.
Absolutely. All right. So my brand is called My Negus Clothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a play on words.
Okay.
Yeah, it's MYNEGUS.
Okay.
And then clothing. But it's a play on words. And the reason why I chose Negus in particular is because it's an Amharic terminology that comes from an Ethiopian language.
Okay.
But it means royalty. It means emperor, empress.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it doesn't have anything to do with the negative connotation that we've actually accepted
Absolutely,
as a society as a term of endearment. You know what I'm saying?
That's cool.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So like when I tell people about that, like they're like, because when they see it, initially their mind goes to the negative.
Hey, we did the same thing. I was like, are we allowed to say that online or what? So I'm glad you got to say it and give us the background of it, because that is very cool.
Yeah. So I mean, and I always try to tell people too, like, with the negative, term that we all know, right? The original term with the hard ER, right? Just because we take it and put an A at, put an A on it, it doesn't necessarily change the definition of the word, right? The definition remains the same. But I understand that, by changing it, Black community or, people of color feel like it takes the power away from the word. But for me, I think the only way, it's taking the word back. But for me, it's like, it was never our word.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was a word given to us as, a description of who we are, who people thought we are at that time.
Yeah.
And for me, I that's why I wanted to, kind of promote the Negus, because that is a word that actually comes from our ancestors.
Yeah.
Given to us by us.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's that's amazing. I mean, I did not know the deeper meaning behind how you had branded that, but I mean, first of all, that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And second of all, it's super powerful to have that out on the front lines. And thirdly, it'll grab you. I mean, when you see it, you definitely
take a second.
You're gonna read it again.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I say that candidly because when I showed Kellen it, I remember
I called him right away.
Yeah. He didn't text back. He called me. He's like, "Are you sure this is?"
I was like, "How do you say this?" I don't want to get in trouble.
But no. I mean, and I know you've got a podcast that we've touched on that's launching here soon. And tell us the name of it and kind of what you're going to be doing there.
Yeah, so the podcast is going to be called the Mental Wealth Podcast.
Nice.
And the reason why I decided to come up with that name in particular is because, I center my brand around the message of, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think personally, I believe that, mental health is wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're taking care of your mental, I feel like everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of people are afraid of mental health, or they feel like it's a taboo. It's because they don't really understand the power of mental health and how it can change an individual or even a family. So with the podcast in itself, I want to put a focus on mental health, but also, other topics as well, as far as like, and just kind of erase some of the taboos around mental health. Because for someone who is, going through, my own therapy journey, which I see a therapist every couple of weeks, You know, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I tell people all the time. I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, dude, I see a therapist. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that,
That
because at the
rocks.
end of the day, I look at it as like going to the doctor,
Yep.
you know, for your physical,
Yeah.
for your physical health.
Yeah. I'm just going to tell you, I appreciate that a lot. I dealt with some. Still, I mean, every day it can be a struggle as well. But you know, there was a time in my life where
Mhm.
I really struggled with it, and I didn't really know
Mhm.
where to turn to it. Now, luckily,
Mhm.
I had my dad struggled with it as well, and I had someone who I could bounce ideas off of what was going on. Doing it by
Mhm.
yourself can be very scary, and so to have an
Oh yeah.
outlet, you know, for that, so people can turn to it and listen to it, and kind of have some things that they can turn to you know, get them back on track. That just for me, you got a listener already, so I appreciate you doing that for everybody.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I want to add is like you alluded to something a minute ago that like
Mhm.
struck me because um I remember when I used to hear the term mental health thrown around, um it seemed like this deep dark abyss that I didn't even want to look into.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't even know where to start, and I knew I had issues, but I didn't know exactly, you know, like Kellen said, what to do about it necessarily. Um, and dude, I came to learn that even some of the simplest things, like looking down at your feet, putting your feet flat on the floor,
Being grounded.
being grounded, knowing, okay,
Yeah.
here's where I'm at, and bringing yourself to the present. You know, breathing exercise, like all these things that I would have never thought like I would want to try in the first place.
Right.
You know, these simple things that anybody can implement without another soul even knowing you're doing. You
Mhm.
know, and then on top of that, you know, the elements of therapy. I know you got a video, so I'm gonna bring it up. I know you got a
Okay. Yeah.
video, and you know, just to hit the nail right on the head, is you mentioned in the video that in your community and kind of your culture, that is not something that is talked about.
No.
It's not something
No.
that people are gonna, you know, seek out. So I'm super stoked for you and what you're
Yeah.
doing, and I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, anybody that's in certain circumstances, they are
Mhm.
not going out of their way to seek these things that can help them.
Mhm.
I'm going to meet them in the middle.
Right.
And that rocks.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I just want to throw that your way.
Mhm.
I want to add a question for you is like, do you have some ideas with, you know, that platform of how you can do that kind of to the front lines? Because just like Kellen has his story that I can't
Mhm.
tell, you know, I have my story and you have your story. You're able to reach people I could never,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I'm really curious to see, you know, in the future what you do with that. Do you have certain? I know you've got a brand and a merch line. Is that something that you're going to kind of help to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have some merch kind of centered around that mental wealth idea. Um, so I have some merch that you know, on the front, you know, it's pretty big, and it says mental wealth on the front. And I have, you know, on the arm it says check on your loved ones, and on
Nice.
the back it has like a, you know, little saying that, you know, the saddest people smile the brightest. You know what I mean? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
just
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, me
kind of
too.
yeah, kind of just pointing out, you know, like, you know, people go through things on a regular, and you know, because of the type of society that we live in, you know, it's almost like it's okay to be fake, right?
Yeah.
And um and in reality for me, it's like, you know, I understand that, you know, people everybody's going through something, whether they want to admit it or not. You
Right.
know what I mean? Whether they want to be upfront about it or not. And I know with my brand, I also, you know, with it being centered around mental health, I just definitely want to make sure that I put out, you know, uh, merch that people can actually buy and feel good about. Um, but also, have a message behind it. Because there's also other stuff that I've also put out as well. I just dropped a T-shirt, and it has we grow through what we go through on it.
Ooh,
I
I
have
like
another
that.
T-shirt that has beautifully and wonderfully made on the front, and then on the back it says from the mud. I mean, so
That's
I
cool.
just I try to incorporate my message within my brand
Yeah.
and within pretty much everything I do as well.
Yeah.
So
No, that's great.
Just
And I
with-
mean, I think people that, you got merch out there that, if someone's wearing it, someone else at the gas station is going to ask them about it. I mean,
Yes.
that's great.
right,
Just that conversation. I mean, even with your brand name, we
Yeah.
talked about that, like just having that second step or second thought, look at it, be like, wow, what is this about? And have that conversation. And everything, what I was going to say, and Tommy touched on this too, is we all kind of have had those struggles, but everybody's normal looks a little bit different, like
right,
my normal, there's no such necessarily a thing as normal, but everyone to feel like who they are, who they're supposed to be, that's their normal. The journey to get there is all different, but the messaging honestly is pretty similar, So we appreciate you doing that. Once you, for real quick, we're wrapping up here. Once you plug your TikTok channel for us, run us through the podcast one more time, and then get us that merch line.
absolutely. So again, you can find me on all major platforms, to be honest, under the same handle at My Negus Clothing, which is MYNEGUS Clothing, and that's anywhere. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, IG, YouTube, where I will be posting the podcast itself, which is the Mental Wealth Podcast. First episode will probably be dropping around the first or second week of July. And then the actual website as well is www.mynegus with a dash and then clothing.com. And then also, I wanted to do something special for just for your listeners as well, because just for being a part, allowing me to be a part of your platform. For any of your listeners, if they want to go to the site and they want to see something that they like and it inspires them, they want to buy it, they can use the code PHD20 and it'll give them 20% off their order, no issues. All they have to do is just put in PHD20, get that 20% off, and it's yours.
Man, we
Awesome.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. I know I'm going to be sporting and representing here.
Yeah, we're gonna be. I'm gonna wear one on the podcast.
Yeah.
We wear hats every episode,
Absolutely.
so we gotta. If we got a hat, we'll rock some hats.
Yeah.
Obviously, some shirts. So
Definitely.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna make sure I get you guys some stuff. So don't even worry about that.
awesome, man.
No, we appreciate it. And man, you really are an inspiration. I know that gets thrown around way too much in our society. Somebody does one good deed and it's on a viral video, they're a saint. But you're doing the work day to day.
Yep.
And you're putting in the time and effort to really make a real change. Thanks again, man, for coming on, and I look forward to connecting in the future as well. I'm sure we'll have you back on down the road and touch base, and like if there's anything we can do, like I've mentioned to you, to help out with your podcast, we're certainly here to help.
Yeah, man. All right, so this has been the PhD podcast. This is Kellen King with Charles.
I'm Tommy DeSalt. We're at Post Hump Day everywhere, all socials.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.